Emily believed her life was perfect: a loving husband, a devoted daughter, and a thriving career. Little did she know, her carefully curated world was about to unravel. James, her husband, had already discovered her secret affair and had been meticulously planning his ultimate revenge. The breaking point came when their teenage daughter, Sophia, shattered the facade. In the warmth of their suburban Chicago living room, the tension was palpable. Sophia, her face flushed with anger, stood trembling before her mother. Her voice, sharp with betrayal, echoed through the room. "You're a cheating witch. I hope I never see you again." Emily, typically poised and self-assured, stood motionless, her face drained of all color. The weight of Sophia's words crushed her, leaving her speechless. From across the room, James leaned against the doorway, his expression calm yet purposeful. His gaze, steady and piercing, held a quiet satisfaction as he witnessed the scene unfold. He had waited for this moment, carefully biding his time. In a measured voice, James broke the silence. "I've known about your affair with Victor for months," he began, his tone steady and devoid of emotion. "I kept quiet, watching you dig this hole deeper and deeper. Now, it's time you face the consequences." Emily's world, once built on confidence and control, now teetered on the edge of collapse. She had always prided herself on being the cornerstone of their family and social circle, a driven, accomplished woman admired for her success and charm. But James, the man who had stood by her side, had seen the cracks forming long before she realized they existed. Sophia's outburst was just a beginning. James reflected on their family dynamic, once seemingly perfect. He had worked tirelessly to provide a loving and stable home, while Emily excelled in her career. Together, they had built a life others envied. Their daughter, Sophia, had been the center of their world, a bright, spirited teenager who brought light into their lives. But beneath the surface, fissures had begun to spread. Emily's betrayal hadn't been obvious at first. The late nights at work, vague excuses, and hurried explanations seemed innocent enough. James had given her the benefit of the doubt, trusting her implicitly. However, her whispered phone calls and muffled laughter began to chip away at that trust. The tipping point came one evening when Sophia overheard her mother laughing on the phone and mentioning dinner plans. Confronted, Emily dismissed it as a work meeting, but the seed of suspicion had already been planted in Sophia's mind. From that moment, the once solid foundation of their family began to crumble. As James watched Emily's carefully constructed world collapse, he felt no remorse, only a sense of justice. This was just the beginning of her reckoning, and he would ensure she felt the full weight of her betrayal. James didn't need to search for evidence of his wife's betrayal. It fell into his lap one evening. While handing Emily her phone, he glanced at the screen and froze. A message from someone named Victor appeared, laced with affectionate and intimate language. There was no mistaking its implications. The truth hit him like a punch to the gut. Instead of confronting Emily immediately, James chose a different path. He swallowed his anger, opting for patience and calculation over emotional outbursts. His priority was safeguarding Sophia while carefully piecing together the full extent of Emily's lies. Maintaining a facade of the devoted husband, he silently observed as her duplicity began to unravel. This quiet resolve, hinted at during Sophia's fiery outburst, set the tone for the slow dismantling of Emily's seemingly flawless life. As James delved deeper into her deception, the cracks in their family's foundation grew more apparent. Determined to gather undeniable evidence, James discreetly tracked Emily's movements. Her increasingly frequent meetings with Victor became impossible to ignore. He followed her on multiple occasions, witnessing moments of affection that confirmed her betrayal. Yet, James knew that first-hand observations alone weren't enough. To leave no room for doubt, he hired a private investigator to document her infidelity in meticulous detail. With every revelation, his determination solidified. Outwardly, he remained composed, playing the role of the unassuming spouse. But beneath his calm exterior, a storm brewed, a storm he knew would one day erupt. Meanwhile, Sophia's unease continued to grow. What had begun as a faint suspicion after overhearing her mother's whispered phone calls turned into certainty when she saw Emily with Victor at the mall. The sight of her mother laughing and acting intimately with another man shattered the image of the woman she thought she knew. Sophia felt a whirlwind of emotions, confusion, hurt, and betrayal. That evening, she approached James hesitantly, her voice laced with worry. "Dad, is Mom seeing someone else?" The question cut him deeply, but he chose his words carefully. Rather than confirming her worst fears, he offered her a gentle reassurance, vowing silently to shield her from the harsh truth for as long as possible. Unaware of the storm brewing around her, Emily grew increasingly reckless. Convinced that James remained oblivious, she acted with newfound confidence, brushing off his occasional questions with vague explanations. Her audacity turned to manipulation, accusing him of being overly controlling or insecure whenever he probed too deeply. James, however, saw through her facade. Every dismissive remark, every attempt at gaslighting, only fueled his resolve. He knew the reckoning was near, and Emily's arrogance would ultimately be her undoing. Every time James pressed for answers, and Emily deflected with manipulative excuses, his determination only grew. Her blatant disregard for their family solidified his resolve to confront her in a way she would never forget. The mounting tension between them set the stage for a decisive moment, a confrontation James had carefully and methodically planned. After months of quiet preparation, James was ready. He arranged what appeared to be an ordinary family dinner at their home in Chicago. However, this gathering came with a shocking twist. Without Emily's knowledge, he invited Margaret, Victor's unsuspecting wife, to join them. James believed Sophia deserved to witness the truth firsthand and included her in this pivotal moment. As the evening approached, James braced himself for the inevitable fallout. The weight of his decision was heavy, but he was resolute. This was not just about exposing Emily. It was about holding her accountable and shattering the lies that had poisoned their family. The dinner began with an air of forced politeness, the atmosphere thick with unspoken tension. Then, with deliberate calm, James reached for the remote and turned on the television. The room fell silent as the screen displayed damning footage of Emily and Victor together. The evidence was irrefutable, leaving no room for denial or deception. Margaret seized the moment, her voice trembling with fury as she confronted Victor. Years of pent-up betrayal poured out as she exposed his lies and cowardice, her words cutting through the room like a blade. For Sophia, the sight of her mother's actions laid bare was unbearable. Her face streaked with tears. She rose from her seat and spat in Emily's direction. "You're a cheating witch," Sophia screamed, her voice cracking with raw emotion. "I hope I never see you again." The weight of her words was crushing, and Emily's once confident demeanor shattered. She collapsed into sobs, desperately trying to apologize, but the damage was done. Sophia stormed out, leaving behind a silence more deafening than any shouting match. The bond between mother and daughter was now fractured beyond repair. James, still composed but cold as ice, turned to Emily. His voice was steady, devoid of emotion. "This is just the beginning of your consequences." His words lingered, a stark reminder that her actions had set off a chain of events that would change their lives forever. The explosive dinner marked the breaking point for their family. For Emily, the aftermath was devastating. Her world, once so carefully constructed, lay in ruins. James, having meticulously documented her affair, began to discreetly share the details with those in their social circle. This revelation didn't just destroy Emily's reputation. It sent shockwaves through their lives, forcing everyone involved to confront the painful reality of her choices. For James and Sophia, it marked the start of a new chapter, one built on truth and the painful but necessary process of healing. At Emily's workplace, the revelation of her infidelity spread like wildfire. Once a respected and admired professional, she found herself the subject of whispers and judgment. Her colleagues, who once celebrated her successes, now avoided her entirely. The fallout wasn't confined to her personal life. Her reputation was in tatters. Victor didn't escape unscathed either. Margaret, armed with undeniable evidence, filed for divorce. The separation left him financially devastated and socially disgraced, a far cry from the confident man who once flaunted his affair. As the dust settled, Emily's career came to a grinding halt. Facing immense scrutiny, she was left with no choice but to resign. The life she had so confidently built crumbled piece by piece. Forced to leave the family home, Emily found herself alone, grappling with the loss of everything she once took for granted. For James and Sophia, the aftermath was no less emotional, but it came with an opportunity to rebuild. James focused all his energy on creating a stable and nurturing environment for Sophia, prioritizing her well-being above everything else. The shared pain of betrayal brought father and daughter closer, strengthening their bond as they leaned on each other for support. Sophia, however, bore deep emotional scars. Unable to forgive her mother, she made the difficult decision to sever all ties with Emily, refusing to see or speak to her. With James's guidance, Sophia focused on moving forward, leaving her mother as a distant and painful memory. As James reflected on the wreckage Emily had left behind, he found solace in knowing he had done everything possible to protect Sophia. Despite the pain, they began to rebuild their lives, determined to create a future untainted by the shadows of Emily's choices. Desperation soon drove Emily to one final attempt at redemption. Hoping to reconnect with Sophia, she appeared unannounced at her daughter's school, pleading for a moment of her time. But instead of reconciliation, she faced a harsh rejection. In front of classmates and teachers, Sophia's cold, public dismissal shattered any hope Emily had left. The sting of her daughter's words and the pitying stares of onlookers left her humiliated and broken. It was in that moment that Emily fully grasped the depth of her loss, not just her family, but also her dignity and place in their lives. Meanwhile, James finalized his plans for closure. He had already secured full custody of Sophia through the courts, ensuring Emily's visitation rights were minimal. This reinforced the message that her role in their lives was over. To further emphasize their fresh start, James sold the family home, a symbol of the life they once shared, and donated part of the proceeds to charity in Emily's name. This gesture, equal parts mocking and symbolic, served as a public reminder of the consequences of her betrayal. Emily's downfall was complete. Her once-admired life lay in ruins, and her attempts at redemption only deepened her humiliation. For James and Sophia, the end of this chapter marked a new beginning. Free from the shadows of Emily's actions, they moved forward with determination and resilience. The story reached its emotional climax as the true extent of Emily's downfall became undeniable. No longer living in denial, she faced the full weight of her choices while James and Sophia embraced the chance to rebuild their lives. Free from betrayal and deceit, the life Emily once lived, surrounded by luxury and success, was now a distant memory. Working a low-paying job to make ends meet, she was a shadow of her former self. The confident, successful woman who once commanded admiration now faced the harsh realities of a life she had dismantled with her own hands. Meanwhile, the contrast between her downfall and the flourishing lives of James and Sophia could not be starker. Sophia excelled in her studies, her confidence blossoming as she left behind the pain caused by her mother's betrayal. Her laughter returned, and with it, a renewed sense of purpose and joy. James, having embraced a sense of peace in his new life, devoted himself to creating a future where Sophia could thrive, free from the shadows of their past. He found solace in their shared bond, focusing on ensuring that their lives were filled with stability, love, and hope. As the story drew to a close, James reflected on the transformative nature of betrayal. Through his narration, a profound truth emerged. While betrayal has the power to destroy, it also holds the potential to catalyze growth and renewal. It is in the aftermath of such pain that new opportunities for healing can arise. In a quiet and poignant final scene, James and Sophia stood together in their new home. The weight of their former life had been left behind, and with it, the lingering pain of betrayal. Their fresh start symbolized the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to rebuild and move forward even after enduring profound heartache. As James gently closed the door to their new home, the camera lingered on a letter resting on the counter. The envelope, marked with Emily's handwriting, remained unopened and untouched. It was a silent symbol of her regret and the life she had lost. But James and Sophia had no intention of revisiting the past. The letter, forgotten and ignored, served as a poignant reminder that while the pain of betrayal is unforgettable, it does not have to dictate the future. With the door closing, the chapter of their old life came to a definitive end. In its place stood a promise of hope, healing, and a brighter tomorrow. The story's conclusion carried a powerful message. Trust is a fragile bond, easily broken but difficult to restore. Betrayal, while devastating, can mark the beginning of a new chapter, a chance to grow, heal, and rebuild. James and Sophia's journey demonstrated that even in the face of deep wounds, resilience and determination can lead to a life of renewed purpose and joy. Before the credits rolled, viewers were invited to share their thoughts. Was James's response to Emily's betrayal justified? Could there have been a different way to handle the situation? The open-ended question encouraged reflection and engagement, inviting the audience to consider what they might have done in his place. Finally, viewers were thanked for joining in this emotional journey. A heartfelt call to action encouraged them to subscribe for more captivating narratives that explore themes of personal transformation, emotional depth, and the complexities of human relationships. With a simple reminder to click the notification bell, the story ended, leaving behind a sense of closure and the promise of future tales.